one of the animators actually Temp voiced he's a man, but he was like making his voice high and playing a woman in the game, and we all got so used to his voice because he was delivering it in such a great, believable way.
Lady Doerr, of course. Let me explain.
It had better be a bloody good explanation. Go on.
Yeah, a lot of people are sad when their Temp voice goes out of the game, gets replaced, because it's like, oh, I don't get to my silly take anymore, or what have you. But yeah, even this one, we just heard the final voice of Lady Doerr, and with Claire's acting, it was like, yeah, wow, okay, that's elevated.
How Machiavellian, Mr. Conway. You asked me to lie to the police. To your daughter, no less.
We're always trying to expand our acting repertoire in the game and always looking for fresh talent. And on this project, we're really lucky to be joined by some brand new actors who we've never worked with before. We specifically chose a small group of people so that we could deep dive into personality and maybe form some kind of character study on the characters within the game. It's a game about observing and prying on those people, so it just made sense to have a manageable amount of people to be able to do that with. Myself, I play Robert Conway, who is the retired detective who's trying to solve this case. Robert Conway's daughter, Catherine, is played by Ali Murphy, and Catherine as a character, Robert's daughter, is there to be the judge and the emphasis on all of Robert's questionable decision-making throughout the game. We have a couple called the McKees, Theo and Annabelle McKee, and they are played by Elspeth Edmonds and Kayi, both great actors, and Elspeth actually also worked with us on Ether 1. Shirley Downs, who owns the pub in the game that we get to spy on, is played by a lovely new actress called Melissa Tom, who I've just had the pleasure of meeting for the first time over the past few months. Again, a brand new addition to the team. We also have Ben Britton, who is playing William Crowe. And Lady Doerr, who people have seen in the trailer, is played by another brand new face to the team, Claire Bousden, who again is another fantastic actress. And we've been really lucky this time to get the cast of characters that we have. The girl in the game, her father is Tony Morgan, and he's played by Jamie Crispin. Again, another new face. As we've evolved as game makers and writers and directors of people, we've just tried to constantly add new talent to the team in a way to keep it fresh. Some people returning from previous titles, like Ali Murphy, as I mentioned, who's playing Catherine Conway, Robert's daughter, was also in the Occupation. She played several characters, and she actually won the One Voice Awards for Best Actress in Video Games. So, yeah, returning cast and new cast alike, we've got some great talent on this project, and it's exciting to get to work with them.
That's fine, Mr. Conway. So, what am I looking for up here?
Mr. Conway, are you there?
I really enjoy the way your voice is breaking at the end as well. It's very nice.
I'm sorry, officer. I wanted to speak to one of you yesterday, but I lost my nerve. Oh, sorry. I'm the pub owner of the Crow's Nest.
The auditioning process for this project was huge compared to our previous games. In a majority of cases, we'll have a lot of the script written for that character and a very strong idea of who they are. And in some other cases that we're, as we work throughout the game, towards the back end of where the script is still being written, but we have a character and we know we need to start casting, it gets a little bit more probably freeing and a bit more vague as to who we might need. The benefit of having worked with as many actors as I have in the past is that when I'm writing a character, if I already know that person's available and interested, I can, if I know that the voice is a good fit, I can actually write to the strengths of what I know that person can deliver. So that's a benefit of bringing somebody back that you've worked with before. But obviously you want to create something new for that person as well. You don't just want them to play the same character that they've played in the past. this a heartbreaking one, actually. In the Occupation, the idea was to have a better studio space to record the VO, just to be able to know that the standard every step of the way is obviously hitting a certain bar, and also it just makes recording so much easier. I was talking about having lights and making it a comfortable space for the actors, so obviously we haven't used that space. It's probably covered in cobwebs, so that any of that has gone out of the window. Again, the dream there was to make it a great space for an actor to be, and the idea was to have them come to the studio. And we get to meet them that way, and the rest of the team get to connect with the person who's playing that voice. It's sad, but it's not a sob story for us, but COVID's been a bigger thing than this, so you just have to deal with it. So that was the dream, and what's actually ended up happening is the same as our previous titles, which we're familiar with working with, so it's fine. But we do things over Skype, and like this now is over Zoom, and all those new things have cropped up to help.
No. You're saying it right. It's about the singing. I'm thinking almost like disappointment that there's no keyhole because the intrigue builds. So it's like, well, it's locked, but there's no keyhole. Like it's like, what are we going to do? Right. Okay. So I will help you. And now we, call to action kind of. I understand as a player that this is the challenge kind of thing. So well, it's locked, but there's no keyhole, and there's that is strange. Anything else? It's like, well, let's keep going.
We're really lucky because a lot of the voice actors that we have are more professional booth setups than I do. So the quality of audio coming through from them is great.
This is in the booth.
And I just have to do a very slight amount of mixing just to keep things sounding like they belong in the same kind of space, because our actors aren't working head to head. They're not bouncing off of each other in a physical sense. So what normally happens is luckily I'm playing Robert Conway anyway, so that part of it's dealt with. But if Theo and Annabelle are having a conversation, for example, what tends to happen is Elspeth will be recording her lines and I'll play Theo, and then when Theo's recording his lines, I'll be playing Elspeth, and then vice versa with Robert and what have you. I just do not have a good space where I live to record. I have traffic going outside my house constantly. So I have a little 2.5-year-old girl, and when she's out with the grandparents, I literally nip into her room. It's the most isolated room in the house, and it's got more fluffy toys than any other room in the house. So there's a lot of free dampening. It's the furthest away from the road, so there's less traffic. Basically, I sit next to her cot with a little massive round box that she has for her toys, with my microphone on it and her duvet over the top, and then sometimes a stuffed animal, big one, behind my head to stop the reverb. And I literally sit and I'll do a half-an-hour session on the floor in that scenario, and it doesn't look professional, but the sound's actually pretty good.
So, thanks to COVID, this is the pro setup for the current game. We've got a studio just sat there, not doing anything. Making do with what we've got. Isn't that right, guys?
So the game, in terms of VO recording, is 95% complete as of this moment. And I actually have a session later on today, and another session tomorrow, and then there's just one more to do after that. And the reason that happens so late in the recording process, in the game making process, the development cycle, is because we temp every single word in the game. That will mean the coder gives me 10-minute read through of what would take an actor 2 hours of a session to really nail we do a 10-minute version, and it sounds like you'd expect it to sound from a 10-minute version, and then the animators can you give me 10 minutes and just record these lines, and we get the entire game working functionally with the VO so that somebody can play through it and understand context, and if in the case of some of the VO lines, they're more directive, they need to be in place for the player to go, so I'm looking over there for the thing, and that's all there and it's all in place. Let's put that cherry on top, which is the voice acting, like the final voice acting.
There's a panel on the side, if that helps. Looks like it might open somehow. Looks like it might open somehow.
And by that time, anyway, I have a really, really strong idea of what does and doesn't work in the level, and helps me to direct them to really sell an emotion or a tone, or So yeah, the entire game has its VO in, but there's still an artist and a coder and an animator's voice knocking around, and what I'm doing is going through the process of replacing those and getting that game to the level of polish where the public can play it and just feel like the desired effect and result, and really enjoy it, knowing that it's gone through that many steps of iteration just for them, really.
Just about to call Claire Valsden, see if she's free for a pickup session. We've recorded all of this dialogue already, and there's been a little bit of confusion with one of the puzzles.
Got you, okay.
And basically, as she leaves her conversation, she says, some of my husband's things, something to do with one of my husband's whatever. And it's just very vague. And as people are actually playing the level, they just need that little bit more information.
Yes. Model boats, you say? Yes. I will say, though, the code was usually something to do with my late husband's model boats in the main hall.
Excellent. Oh, you're already in character. It's fantastic.
She never leaves. She never leaves.
This is great. So it's variations on that theme, basically. If you could do the Mr. Conway, may I remind you that it's your running with that.
Yeah.
Probably only need it once or twice. It's just so that I don't have to cut midline and maybe get a slightly different tone.
Yeah, okay. So I'll start recording then. I will say, though, the code was always something to do with my late husband's boats.
Boats, you say?
Yes, in the main hall.
The conversation just kind of starts because Robert says, hello, the crow's nest. It kind of just cheekily answers the phone, and William Crowe instantly assumes he's a police officer. So it's almost like whenever William Crowe speaks, he has this thing he wants to say, and he's almost not letting Robert get a word in edgeways. And given 10 seconds, Robert would probably say, yeah, I'm going to hold my hand up, I'm not a police officer. But he's not jumping in there to say that either.
I'm sorry, officer. I wanted to speak to one of you yesterday, but I lost my nerve. Sorry, I'm the pub owner of the Crow's Nest.
Really? I thought Shirley was the owner.
No, she has a habit of telling people that, but she just manages the place.
Is that so?
Can I talk to you about something, officer?
The Occupation was a very hands-on, anything goes kind of game, and it didn't actually end up making much sense that the main character spoke, because you could do things in so many different ways, and that's what the emphasis was on. Whereas in this game, it's a far more cinematic experience, and although the player still has to figure out, how to do certain puzzles in the game themselves, it's very much down to the player. The drive is very singular. It's find this girl, and who took her from her father. That's something that needs that narrative hook. The player needs to respond to emotional beats at the same time as Robert Conway does. And that's actually the biggest challenge of it, trying to get the player to feel what Robert Conway is then saying about it. But for the cinematic quality, alone, just having that spoken character, somebody you can show, somebody that if they're attacked you see, and if they cry you see it, and if they're happy you see, like show it, don't tell it kind of thing. And if it's just dialogue options here and there coming up on the screen, with that kind of thing, I feel like you're going to fall flat a little bit. This is how I think of Conway. I think of him as someone who's got a very high IQ, but he's not a genius. And he has this, he has a physical disability in that he can't climb the ladder to chase after somebody. And so what can he do? Well, he can think, and he can talk, and he can use his silver tongue, and he can manipulate. And to have a character where you can hear and feel the manipulation, I think that's powerful, and that's part of a strong reason to have a spoken protagonist, to highlight their strengths and show them, instead of just kind of tell them.